Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news networks refuse to use. No doubt starts now. This is the broadcast for July 31st in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, to do so on your radio and the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed, we believe the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by the founding fathers, one of the great peaceful restorative solutions we still have at our fingertips. As you know, we reject revolution. We stand for peaceful restoration of the greatest country on the face of the earth. All right, there's so much going on in the news. We've got our Honest Money report coming up here in a little bit with Bryan. Get an update on constitutional currency and all that kind of stuff. Criminal Fed holds interest rates steady for the fifth consecutive meeting. Think about that. They've held interest rates steady for the fifth consecutive meeting. I want to break that down with Bryan because you really wonder, what would interest rates do if they were left to their own devices? Why do we have a banking cartel, a criminal banking cartel, determining interest rates in America? The president begging for lower interest rates. Why should the president be able to set the interest rates? Who says the president knows? Why do we think one man or a group of people, men, women, whatever, can know where the interest rates ought to be? I mean, don't we believe in the free market? Don't we believe in the free enterprise system? Anyway, I digress. I just thought I'd highlight that really quick at the start because it's one of the biggest news tidbits that came out since yesterday when the Fed, again, decided not to move interest rates. Now, they had a couple of dissenters this time and everything else, so that's of interest as well. The Fed split, to say the least, proving my point unequivocally. All right. This is a very interesting question that I want to bring up because every single time there's a shooting in America now, we hear about it nationally. And if you have a shooting happen here or there or who knows where, it seems like that's all you hear about is the shooting. I mean, we have to track down the name of the shooter. We have to find out what political persuasion the shooter was. We have to find out what associations the shooter had. We have to find out if there was a manifesto and did the shooter kill themselves right after they shot everybody up and what caused it and what fueled this and why and how and where and who and what. To ad nauseum, folks. Now, don't misunderstand me. By any means, I am saddened by this kind of behavior. It is horrible. It is awful. We must do what we can to change the game, to have it stop. Gun control, clearly not the answer. That's clearly what every time something happens like this, the liberals and those who want to steal your right to keep and bear arms, half of them, kind of live in glass houses a little bit because they have armed guards all around them. Congress right now asking for more security while they try to disarm the rest of us. I mean, it's just psychotic, right? And I think any common thinking American gets all that, right? Anyway, but here's the question that I have for you. Should the media limit coverage of mass shootings? Question mark. Yeah. Exploring potential benefits in reducing copycat events? That's kind of my question. Okay? I think it's a fair question. How much of this constant reporting of violence and shootings and, it's reported all the time all over. And what's interesting to me is there's shootings in Chicago that happen all the time. Some of these big cities literally happen all the time. A lot of those don't get reported because it's black on black crime. But why, if it's somewhere else, does it instantly become a national story? And should the media limit coverage of mass shootings? And you got to decide what a mass shooting is. If you shoot 5 people, is it a mass shooting? If you shoot 20, is it a mass shooting? Et cetera. And what I'm thinking about here is, number one, we always hear everything about the shooter. And it goes on and on and on. But we never really have any pay dirt. We never really have any answers or real solutions. And let me explain what I mean. Think about the assassinations on Donald Trump's life. A horrible, horrible situation. I'm grateful that President Trump is alive, and I do believe God saved him. I do believe that, really. He could have been gone so easily. But here's the point. We don't know anything about the shooters, really. We know little blips, but we don't really know what caused it. We don't know, okay, we don't have any answers. What we know is the government failed President Trump big time. We know that. Now Congress begging for more security for themselves. But what I find fascinating about this discussion is, could it be that our continued focus on and attention regarding and reporting every single shooting, could it be that a lot of these people create copycat scenarios because of what they've seen in the media? Could it be that a lot of these people are like, hey, you know, if I do this, I can go down as a hero, or my name will be nationally known? When should the media limit mass coverage of shootings versus, hey, we could reduce copycat events if we wouldn't report so much of this? Anyway, do you think I'm onto something with this question or discussion point or not? I mean, am I just crazy? It's like, no, Sam, you're goofy. But why is, let's say that a shooting happens, let's just say in, I don't even want to say a state. Well, anyway, let's just say one happens in Chicago. That's an easy place. Do I really need to know about it in Utah? Is it really a national news story for me or somebody in California? Or maybe somebody in South Carolina or wherever you happen to be. Is it really national news? Yeah, what defines a gang rival shootings versus this shooting versus that shooting? How do we decide when a shooting decides that it's mainstream news, not to go national? I think it's a really interesting question. And I think a lot of times these stories go national whenever there's a racial component, because they love to stir us up about race. I think oftentimes there's a, if it happens in a quiet, normally not, normally not a violent place or whatever, then it gets kind of a lot of coverage. But you got to kind of ask yourself some questions about that. Why are we covering so much of these gun stories? And every time you hear the same, agitators come out, congressmen, senators, oh my goodness, another gun, we got to have more gun control. Well, it turns out now they're saying, hey, we've got a ton of laws on the books in New York or some of these other places. It's literally supposedly a gun-free zone, except for it's not, right? And we see this scenario over and over and over where it's like, oh, man, somebody goes off crazy with a gun. And then they basically have to admit on the back end that, all the gun laws they have in place didn't really help, didn't really solve the problem, didn't really do any good anyway. Anyway, I really find that fascinating. And I really think we need to kind of think about that in terms of our reporting. Our prayers are with those who suffer in any type of tragedy, whether it's man-made or natural disasters. I don't care if it's a fire that causes a problem, or a hurricane, or a tornado, or a twister, or this, or an earthquake, or that, or a shooting, or whatever else, a knifing, I don't know, plane crash, anything that occurs, our prayers are with those who suffer, especially the innocent, or the young, or the women, or the children, or, okay? I get all that, and I support that. But do we really have to make every shooting in America about gun control, and then admitting on the back end that, oh, man, all these laws don't do any good, or they haven't done good, or they didn't stop it, or they, right? So I just find the whole discussion very interesting. And I really wonder what role we play. I wonder what role we really play in the news when it comes to this kind of stuff, breaking news and everything else. And I just listen, and every time I wake up, there's a violent news story. There's a natural disaster. I'm not saying that we shouldn't cover some of these things, but how much do we cover it? For example, the top of the news is Israel-Gaza. How long has Israel-Gaza been dominating the headlines? It's violent. There's starvation. It's horrible. I get it. But at the same time, I kind of go, do I need to hear about that every day in America? And what's interesting to me about the whole discussion is, when I listen to the news, very rarely is there a positive story of any kind. I'm kind of to the point where I need to worry about, more valuable things from my family. Let me give you an example to make the point. Headline at CNN says this: Trump's trade deadline ticks down to 0. Tariffs are about to soar. And then they have a picture of a container and stuff like this. Now, the debate is there's a big court case happening saying, hey, did Trump, exceed his authority? Did he overstep his authority in imposing them? See, I personally think that he did. But I also think that there's ways to solve the problem. When we come back, Bryan Rust, I want to talk about this in seconds on your radio.
How many times do I have to tell you?
I swear, it just goes in one ear and out the other.
Don't you understand English?
Your children are probably too polite to tell you.
Hello? Those things on the side of your head aren't turnips?
But they get just as frustrated when you won't listen to them as you do when they won't listen to you.
Do I need to speak slower?
In fact, few things show children how much they're valued and respected more than a parent's willingness to listen.
Tell me what you did at work today.
Studies show when parents listen, children develop better listening skills themselves. They also tend to have more self-confidence and are more likely to avoid alcohol and drugs.
Now sit down here and tell me all about it.
When you really listen, love is what they'll hear.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more tips on strengthening your family, visit family.mormon.org.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman on your radio. I've got Bryan Rust with me. For 3 generations, the Rust family has been helping people understand precious metal. freewatercoinco.com. Welcome back, Bryan.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Good to be with you this morning.
Thank you, sir. Before we get to our honest money report, though, I've just got to kind of finish what I was mentioning here. It seems like every time I hear the news, man, it's just negative, 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 and everything is just, the sky is falling and Chicken Little everywhere, and man, it's just horrible. And they always, every single time, at least that I can tell, whenever there's a shooting, it makes national news when they want it to. But see, you have shootings literally every day in Chicago or some of these big, dangerous cities in America. They don't report the black-on-black crime because there's nothing to report. But whenever it's a way that they can politically motivate or say there's a manifesto or pitch the Republicans against the Democrats or promote gun control or whatever they do, it seems like it just covers the headlines to ad nauseum. And so my question is, should the media limit coverage of mass shootings? I mean, we can explore the benefits of reducing copycat events, not being you wonder, is there something to this? The more you hear about shootings, the more shootings that happen, and do we really have to know about a shooting that occurs somewhere that's thousands of miles from us? What do you think, Bryan? Am I onto something, or is this just a crazy notion of mine?
Excuse me. You're right on, Sam, if you ask me. I mean, it's the words that you use whenever they want to, those kind of things, they push that agenda out there. And they really, really throw this, when we have some of these shootings that these things, and they're terrible. Let me just say, it's terrible to see these things happen to, these schools, or someone drives into a crowd, or they go in and stab so many people at Walmart, whatever. I mean, these are bad situations. But the key here, like you said, whenever they want to. They don't want to stop. They don't say anything about, like you say in Chicago. I mean, sometimes as many as 15 people die a day there. It's no big deal. But, boy, when they want to politicalize this and send it overseas to show how, terrible we are or whatever their agenda is, or getting gun control, it's just they just storm up this event. But, boy, they pick and choose what they want to do it and when they want to do it.
Let me give you an example to make the point. I'm on ABC News, and I'm going to give you just some headlines. New York City to be seen bracing for massive flooding. 25 hospitalized after significant turbulence. 1 dead and at least 26 sick from Legionnaire's disease cluster in New York City. Teacher arrested for Arkansas double murder while getting a haircut. Hero officer killed in Manhattan shooting to be honored at funeral. 2 children, adult, killed in plant explosion. Russian strike on Kiev kills 7, including children. I look at that. That's the mainstream. And I go, when you see all this murder, all this, everything is negative. Everything is this melting down. Oh, my gosh, don't get on a plane. The turbulence might just kill you and throw you in the hospital. Oh, my heavens, we've got wars around the world everywhere and rumors of war. By golly, there's shootings everywhere. Brian, you probably shouldn't go out of your house today, buddy. I mean, that's the message, and I can't take it anymore, Brian.
You're right. It's a downward spiral of the negative, and it is. It's so much negative. The mainstream is all about the negative, and it's their agenda, and they choose to throw it. And it's just, it'd be nice to turn that on the other side and look at more of the positive and things that we're doing and the blessings and all the other things. But we don't get it. And I think that's one of the disconnects from the people, in a sense, of not turning to mainstream. They're just fed up with mainstream. They're tired of it. I mean, we've been talking for years, and you've been on this forever. I mean, as far as 35 years or 40, whatever, how long, but has it really changed? I mean, we see good, but we don't talk about good as much. It's mainly all negative. And is that to just destroy us? Is that what it is? To bring us down?
Well, it's hard for me to say that it's not. And I think there's a lot of good news out there. I think God's in his heaven. I think a lot of people are doing random acts of kindness all over the place. I think good people are doing great things with their time. And I think a lot of people are learning to go to church and focus on God, family, and country. And anyway, I just found that fascinating. The Fed, the criminal Fed's what I'm calling it. The criminal Fed holds interest rates steady for 5th consecutive meeting. President Trump tears into Powell after Fed's decision on interest rates. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of the Fed setting interest rates. I don't think we should have a Fed in the first place. And I think it's criminal that they exist, much less set interest rates. But here's the problem that I have with Donald Trump ripping on Jerome Powell. Either you support the idea that the Fed's independent and not political and doing an important, legitimate purpose for government. If that's true, then you need to leave Powell alone and say, hey, it's above politics. He's doing what's best for the nation. They're trying to keep inflation in check, and they're trying to this and that and that. If you believe in that mission, then you got to leave him alone and say he needs independence in doing that. 9 out of the 11 voted to keep interest rates the same. That's a commission. That's a panel or whatever you want to call it. Okay. And Jerome Powell. Now, if you accept that, on the other hand, if you're Sam Bushman and you accept the reality that the Federal Reserve is nothing but a fraud banking cartel, an international group of thugs that are fleecing the American people and have done so for more than a century, then why would you attack Jerome? I mean, all he's doing is the job you guys asked him to do. When I say you guys, whoever that is, whoever upholds that, pretend that it's a legitimate government situation, they're the ones that are causing the problem. Congress, the president. Why would you even argue with Powell about that? Either get rid of him and say you're illegitimate and you're gone, or you have a legitimacy to be there, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, this group is created by Congress. It's non-political. It shouldn't be. And then have Trump decide that he should define or the interest rates more than, say, this panel or this group that's been appointed by who? Oh, that was Donald Trump that appointed this clown in the first place. See, you can't. It just makes no sense, Brian. Do you want to help me with this one?
Well, it's there's a lot of things out here, Sam, that don't make sense. Right's wrong, wrong's right, all those things. But I think you're on the right path there, because I mean, obviously you can't have it both ways, like you say. You got to decide. And I kind of think that perhaps, and maybe we don't know. I mean, maybe the agenda that Trump is trying to do is to try to stabilize the economy and bring things back and so on. And in doing so, it's tariffs and possibly interest rates down, in a sense, would provide opportunities for maybe more borrowing and a less of expense on the interest of that borrowing. And so those are the factors. But yeah, I don't know behind the scenes what's going on. Obviously, they're not on the same page. And I agree with you. I mean, what is the Fed? Why do we have the Fed? Why are we paying so much interest to the Fed? I mean, all this stuff. So it's not a good thing overall anyway, I think.
Well, you got to ask this question. I mean, Donald thinks he should be the one to determine the interest rates. Jerome Powell's been appointed by whatever bureaucrats to do this, and he's got a panel with him that decides all this. It's the 5th consecutive time they haven't moved interest rates. But here's my question. Why don't we leave the interest rate to the normal supply and demand market of everything else in the free enterprise system? Why don't we just let it go? What would happen to interest rates if we did nothing, if we just said we're not going to set them anymore?
Yeah. Wow. Free enterprise.
What would happen if we did that, Brian?
I think that's the way we should be happening. Let's
you want me to predict what would happen?
And all. Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. I don't know that I'm right, because again, nobody can know, because it would be the future, and it hasn't been done for over 100 years, so we don't even really know. But here's my prediction. My prediction is, if you got the Fed out of the rates and the rates were to set themselves based on free market principles, supply and demand and everything else, at first rates would go up. But then what would happen when rates get too high is you'd have a stagflation or a deflationary reality where everything else would start to go down in terms of price. Okay? In other words, supply and demand would say, hey, everybody just can't afford a house when houses cost $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 or whatever, and the interest rates are like 9%. Something's got to give. And if you quit playing in the housing market, get rid of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, some of these other government-manipulated housing cartels in bed with the banking cartels, pretty soon it'll be like you can't get a loan to build a house. Now you're going to have to build a house without a loan, so you're going to have to save in advance, or you're going to have to borrow money elsewhere, or you're going to have to... And what you'll start to see is private lenders lending money at lower costs than the interest rates. And then that would start to drive the interest rates down. And then house costs would go down because nobody could afford the houses at the rates that they have without government intervention or manipulation or spurring this or promoting that or funding, whatever. And eventually the interest rates would start to go down, and so would the costs of a lot of things. Example, if nobody's getting government money to go to school, school's going to be a lot less to attend. When government gives everybody money to go to school, then the cost of school goes through the roof, and no one can justify or afford college anymore. We're saying the same thing in housing and everything else. And I believe the interest rate is the choke point by which they manipulate and control all this. And the sooner you get out of the way and let the free market work, people will build mousetraps over and over and over, a better mousetrap, a better path to your door every time, because there's the free market, and that spawns spontaneity, ingenuity. I mean, I can keep going. Let's have Bryan respond on the other side. Then we'll get the price of gold and silver, etc. What's happening in the markets there? When do we think interest rates will change, if at all? We're going to do it all in seconds. This is the Honest Money Report, brought to you by freewatercoinco.com on your radio.
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomas. Canada joins a handful of Western countries announcing conditional plans to recognize a Palestinian state. The Canadian Prime Minister making the announcement.
Citing the expansion of settlements in the West Bank and what he called Israel's ongoing failure to prevent a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Mark Carney said the possibility of a two-state solution was being eroded before our eyes. Canada's announcement follows similar declarations by France and the UK, although Mr. Carney said it was predicated on the Palestinian Authority holding elections in which Hamas was not a part.
The BBC's David Willis, Israel's prime minister, criticizes a two-state solution, saying it would reward Hamas for monstrous terrorism. A 6-year-old boy is said to be among those killed by the Russians in their latest drone and missile attack on Ukraine. An inflation gauge closely watched by the Fed rose 2.6% year over year last month. That's up from a 2.3% increase in the PCE index in May. In Arkansas, police think they have their man.
Arkansas State Police arrested a 28-year-old man Wednesday and charged him with 2 counts of capital murder in the deaths of a husband and wife at Devil's Den State Park over the weekend. The bodies of Clinton David Brink and Kristen Amanda Brink were found Saturday on a walking trail. Their daughters, ages 7 and 9, were not hurt and are being cared for by family members. The Brink family says the couple died heroes protecting their little girls. The suspects identified as James Andrew McCann of Springdale. Police did not mention a possible motive. I'm Ben Thomas.
Wall Street stocks higher so far this morning. The Dow is up about 133 points. The Nasdaq better by 264 points, and the S&P is up 51. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Charlie Kirk here. I've been thinking, why does it feel like losing weight is harder than ever before? Mixed messages, fad diets, and quick fix solutions. Many people are left stuck and exhausted trying to fight a battle they can't seem to win. If you feel this way, you're not alone. I used to feel that way too. But let me tell you, it's not your fault. Your body is working against you. And delaying action only makes it harder. I took a step 2 years ago and called PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition and lost 40 pounds. I feel great and have kept it off. If you are ready to make a change for life, call 855-696-2020. That is 855-696-2020 to schedule your weight loss consultation. The first 11 callers who mention healthy will get 2 free weeks added to their weight loss package. Call 855-696-2020 and mention the word healthy. Visit them at myphdweightloss.com. That is myphdweightloss.com. It works, everybody. Check it out at myphdweightloss.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, Bryan Rust with me, freewatercoinco.com, doing a phenomenal job. So I was mentioning that I believe the interest rates, if left to their own devices, which I really think needs to happen, the sooner the better. I don't think Trump or the Fed or me or you or any individual should be able to control that key control factor. I think it's really at ground zero when it comes to a lot of what happens, ladies and gentlemen. And I would say that I believe interest rates would go up at first, but I believe that reality would bring them down. In other words, other forces. A lot of private money would start lending money to people. People would be struggling to build houses, so houses would become smaller. But yet, overall, you'd take a burden off the American people, and eventually interest rates would go down. At first, they'd go up because everybody would be kind of in a panic and, hey, where's this going to go? But over time, interest rates would go down. I think the cost of a lot of things would be reduced in this case. And I'll get to the inflationary side of the discussion in a second. But, Bryan, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right. I think fair market trade value, let it run its course. I mean, that's what it should be. I think less is more. When we talk about government, less is more. And right now there's a lot more where, I mean, I think maybe the bigger discussion would be, do we get rid of the Fed? Do we get rid of Fannie Mae and that or IRS, all these things. I mean, less is more, in my opinion. And it'll be able to take care of itself, like you say, supply, demand, and so on. That's how business is. If I can't afford, to do things in my business, I can't do it because I can't afford to do it. I live within my means. And so the tremendous amount of spending and reckless abandon that our government shows as an example is just wrong. So I think where we're at.
When the feds hold rates near zero or does quantitative easing, it's artificially suppressing borrowing costs. Okay? And as a result, then you get too much supply of money. And then what happens is, hey, everybody soaks that up, but yet at the same time, later, the economy doesn't run normal because it's been flooded with too much cheap or unrealistically cheap money. In a free market, lenders would demand higher interest rates to compensate for inflation risk and credit risk. Think about that. It would be, they say that it would be more volatile. It would fluctuate with all these different external conditions. In other words, you would have rises during booms, et cetera. But they would say that there'd be nobody managing the recessions. But I look at it and say, influenced by these core factors, hey, I believe things would be better overall. I really do. We act like the Fed provides this, stable, consistent, whatever. But I don't really see it that way. I see for the beginning of my life, interest rates were super high when I was a little kid, 10, 12 years old. Then interest rates were really low for my whole life and extremely low the last, say, ever since the dot-com bust of 2000 and the huge housing bust of 2008. But now Trump tearing into Powell. But I look at this. Consumer spending heated up last month. But so did inflation. And now the Fed says they want to keep inflation near 2%. I guess it was 2.6% this last, go around or whatever. So it's a little bit high. That's why they want to keep interest rates the same because they want the inflation to go down. Problem is inflation is going up and spending is going up. But why would we keep inflation at 2%? Think about that for a second. 2% over time has a serious toll. 2% over 50 years is 100% increase, right? Well, that's about how long I've been alive. Well, things have gone up way more than 100%. Things are like 35 times what they were when I was born and when I was a kid, Bryan. So it doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right, Sam. Basically, I guess if we want to look at what are things costing us, and what is the dollar worth? I mean, my spending ability with what we're using now, our Federal Reserve notes. I take my wife and I go out to lunch yesterday, and it's $35-$40 for lunch. It's absolutely crazy. You know, what is the dollar bill? What does the dollar bill buy you? Well, I can tell you one thing. My quarter buys me a gallon of gas. Dollar bill won't give me a gallon of gas. See, real money, that silver quarter, I've lost no value in that quarter over 40 years. I mean, I remember when it was a quarter to get a gallon of gas. It still buys me today. The dollar bill, it won't even get me a gallon of gas. So see, you can just see, you know, real money as opposed to just inflated or quantitative easing as we push this money out here into the economy isn't helping. It's hurting. So it's just, you can see it real.
Anyway, inflation has been with us for 100 years, and look at the disastrous results. And I know they want you to believe that, man, it would be different. It would be worse if we didn't have this. I don't see that. Trump's trade deadline ticks to zero. Tariffs are about to soar, writes CNN.com. I hate to be rude to these people over at CNN, Brian, but here's my question. They told you the sky was falling when Trump took office the first time. It was incredible. Now they told you the sky's really going to fall the second time they've been proven wrong. The economy's been doing great. Trump's been at it for, 8 months now almost, or 7 months at least. And you know, I'm not telling you it's perfect, but it's way better than everybody predicted. And now we expect to go with their headline of just doom and gloom and the sky is falling and Chicken Littles everywhere. And wow, it's bogus, Brian.
That's right, Sam. You're exactly right. It is bogus. You know, I mean, there again, we talk about, you know, fair trade. The world, we haven't been on a fair trading plane here, and we're trying to get there, and it's just an uphill battle. But yeah, the gloom and doom of the news, the mainstream news, if you follow that, holy smoke, we'll all have a heart attack in a week.
Well, and I would say this, you know, for those who don't like Donald Trump acting unilaterally on tariffs, and those who, like me, who say it's a congressional responsibility, my response is, why is Congress missing in action then? Why are they so derelict in their duty on our dime? Why don't we suspend their pay till they get their butts in the seats and get something done, backing the president and managing their responsibilities? Otherwise, hey, we're going to suspend your pay and save a bunch of money. I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, how dare you do that, Sam? Gosh, you can't take away their paycheck.
Well, they're about to do a big old recess in August, and I'm thinking, man, we've got short time and a lot of work to do. And if you're critical of President Trump doing what he wants on tariffs, when are you going to come back and put together some support for the president and take your responsibility? Tariffs are a congressional responsibility because a tariff is a tax, Brian.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And then when are they going to do their duty? It seems like we've been kicking this can down the road a long time. Well, the government's going to have to shut down because let's let them shut down. Let's see how that works for a while. Let's just let them shut down. See the havoc that's going to be there. Well, no, they're going to point the fingers at us. Yeah, because you're not doing your job. I totally get it.
And then they're going to criticize President Trump for taking action. And what else do you expect the poor guy to do? He's got to try to do something productive. Now, I know you guys don't seem to have to, but everybody else in reality and in the world does. Congress somehow getting a pass on that. All right, where's gold sitting, sir?
3306.10.
3306.10. That's down a little bit, isn't it?
That's down a little bit. Yep, we've come down.
How come?
It has its ups and downs. Well, it's the issue you watch here as far as the metals on the exchange. So there again, this is paper-driven exchange is manipulated. So you have the 3306 to 10 today. Maybe the demand is pushing, saying, okay, it's higher. We keep saying, well, silver ought to be $100. Is it? No, because it's supply demand based on paper, and it's driven, you know, illegally up and down the way they want. So, you know, physical is there's a demand for physical, and there will be always a demand because industry and everything else that uses it, but it's real. That's why I say real money is not really so much this price I quote you, because that's on the exchange on paper. But
and all the paper contracts have these. All the paper contracts have these clauses too that really they don't guarantee demand. They guarantee that they'll either deliver if you demand it, they'll either deliver the metal or they'll give you your money back. Is that what they say?
Well, they said they used to be to where you could get that, you know, in this that you could get physical. That's what, and so people buy into that, you know, deal as far as I'll get the.
It's a lie, Brian. Into that lie is what it is, right?
You're right. That's exactly right.
Because everybody can't take possession of their metal. There's not enough metal.
Absolutely, that's it.
All right, where's silver sitting?
36.91.
That's down a little bit as well, and there's fluctuation, folks. I get it. But to me, gold and silver are suppressed big time. And if you don't believe me, what if everybody took possession of their metal? They'd have to call a halt to the con game. Hang tight. We'll talk about it.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
Can a nation conceived in liberty carry its head high if it denies protection to the youngest and most vulnerable of its citizens? Can a country founded on God-given rights continue to thrive without understanding that life is a precious gift from our Creator? As a physician, I have looked into the eyes of 1-pound babies. I have cradled their small bodies in the palm of one hand. I defy those who are careless, who would disregard life and look at these tiny little miracles and say, we're not going to protect that.
But I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
So I'm saying the paper trade on metals is nothing but a con game, ladies and gentlemen. It's fake news. And if you don't believe me, just have everybody take possession of their metal and see how well that works out and how many promises they keep, Brian. Now, this is kind of where I kind of find it fascinating. Everybody wants to pretend they're jettisoning fake news. When it comes to the economy, every single bit of it's fake news, Brian, as far as I can tell.
You're right. Well, not on your side, though, Sam. I'm telling you, you do a great job. I'd love to see you in charge of it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, the first thing I'd do is get the feds out of the interest rates, because I believe that's the way they literally manipulate and control everything. They force inflation on us because their target's 2%, which means their mandate is to make sure there's inflation. And they know they can't prop up the fake money system without inflation. That's the only way the Ponzi scheme continues, is you got to have continued inflation. And then this idea that we can decide the interest rates, then decide how much money we're going to put into existence. In other words, have a, what do they call that? A monopoly on money.
Yeah.
You know, we've got monopoly money when that's the case. It's fake money, people. And you just can't control the money supply and control the interest rates and say you haven't just absolutely, completely controlled via these checkpoints or choke points the economy. You have. And so anything we talk about downstream from those decisions is fake news, is manipulated economic reality. And I challenge anybody. Yeah. I'm telling you, I don't care what degree you people have or anything else. I challenge any of you guys to dispute those points. And they can't do it, Brian.
Good point. No, I agree, 100%. It's manipulated and so on. And then the bonus side of it is the insider trading. They get the insider trading. So they get a little bonus for playing this whole game.
All right. You've got a valid point, and so much so that Trump's making your same point. Listen up. Trump just called for an investigation into Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, over at townhall.com, Madeline Leisman has an article over there. And basically, in remarks from the White House on Wednesday, so yesterday, President Donald Trump said that he's calling for an investigation into former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's finances. Why? Well, he says this: I do think Nancy Pelosi needs to be investigated because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. And how did that happen? Because she knows exactly what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, and it goes on. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful, says Trump. Now, I find that interesting, and I appreciate that we ought to investigate that. Now, Josh Hawley, senator in Missouri, introduced legislation that would ban members of Congress from owning or trading individual stocks. I don't know how I feel about that. We can get into that here in a minute, but I don't think we just need to look at Nancy. I think we need to look at all of them, Brian.
Yeah, there you go. It's that insider game that, boy, the rich just keep getting richer at the expense of the bottom line people. We try to survive, and those just keep playing this game of illegal. All of it's illegal. So yeah, it's ugly.
Now, what's interesting to me is the average American used to not really be in the stock market. Most Americans had land. Even if they had a work life or lived in the city, most people had gardens, or they had neighbors they could buy eggs from or meat from or get milk from. Or we've taken that all away and put everything in national store chains, and people don't even know where food comes from anymore, sadly, for the most part. But I bring this up because everybody kind of had, well, it reminds me of my cousin that lived in Mexico, and they were telling me that there was a horrible economic meltdown in Mexico. This was years and years ago. And I said, well, does it affect you guys? And they're like, no, we're so poor we don't know the difference. We just have our eggs and our milk and our cheese that we, and whatever, and we don't really even notice. So who cares? Because most people were insulated from a lot of this stuff. Now they've got everybody with 401ks mandated by your government. You can't touch it till you're 59 and a half. And we go down all these rules and guidelines, and by golly, you can have this money for that and that money for this and that. And there's a big old to-do right now. Donald Trump saying, man, I got these savings accounts for children. And, buddy, if you put this money in the savings account for your child, by the time they're 28 years old, they're going to have a bunch of cash. But it's all manipulated. It's all games. And at the end of the day, I kind of wonder, they've got us all leveraged in this now to where it affects every bit of us. That's a risk in and of itself, Brian.
You're right. Well, that's why, I go back to the less is more. I mean, they're just involved in so many things, and we just need to move them out of the way. And obviously that's not an easy, there's not an easy way to do that. I mean, look at Trump and the uphill battle he's fighting every day. And before you know it, he's no longer going to be there. And then what happens? Does somebody else come back in and they change it back? Or it's just, we've tied ourselves in such a big knot. It's just hard to know how to get out of this. And there's ways, I think you've brought up a lot of good points and ways to do that. But is anybody, is Congress doing their job, or others doing their job? And then when people get, Trump tries to remove people from the jobs because it's waste and over the years, and people aren't happy. So they're squawking because they've lost their job. It's just a big cycle of things that doesn't look good. There's a lot of good, but it doesn't look good.
Anyway, there you have it. I just find that very, very interesting, and I appreciate Josh Hawley trying to do something about it, but I don't have a lot of confidence that we can get anything done. Meaning I appreciate that Trump says Nancy should be investigated. I appreciate Josh Hawley saying let's put some laws in place to prevent these insiders from doing a lot of these things. I appreciate that, Brian, but I'm so jaded. I think it'll be a flash in the pan. Donald will speak about it. Everybody will riot about it for 12 hours. Great. It was a blip in the news cycle. And now it's like, who cares? It's kind of like auditing Fort Knox. I mean, we were told they were going to roll in there. I'm still waiting for those. I don't know if they got to put on a mask and roll in or what they got to do, but I mean, come on. When are we going to go?
Well, they don't have the keys, Sam. They lost the keys somewhere. They don't know who has the keys. So
well, then all we got to do is find a good pick lock guy and get it done.
That's right. Get a criminal over there to break in. I don't. No, you're right.
I just look at it and I don't understand. And so I don't have any confidence anymore, Brian, and I hate to be so negative. But I can't help it. Nancy should be investigated. Look, all 535 of these clowns and the president should all be investigated. How many of them knew about stock deals and took action to make a quick buck or to how can they go in, poor as church mice, get paid, $200,000 a year, whatever it is. They got a house in their district plus a house or wherever to stay while they're in D.C. And I mean, look, it's not a lot of money if you have to support two kind of households or what. Okay, go back and forth, whatever. I don't really see how they even do it, but yet every one of them comes out really wealthy, comes out doing great, comes out and, they have plenty of money and then they alternate into the media or wherever they came from as an attorney and this revolving door just keeps them richer than snot. And so, hey, Nancy Pelosi has the highest return of everybody. Investigate her.
Yeah.
I support it, but I just don't see them doing it.
Well, yeah, and you're right, Sam. Every time we're on, we talk about a lot of these things and we bring up more things, but it's, as I've said in the past, it's like a 3-ring circus. When this ring is really on fire and they don't want it to be on fire, they kind of move you to the other ring. Let's go here. And then to that ring. And they keep avoiding, these fires because they don't want us to kind of slap down in there to see the accountability because, 99% there's no accountability. And so they want you not to focus now on maybe bringing all these people that have ripped off the government and taking billions of dollars that we'd like to get back as the American people. We want, bring this back. How fair is that? Well, they do that, and then you don't hear much. They push it aside. And is there accountability for that? And then there's this. Are they making illegal trading helping them? It's not helping the American people. And so we want to look into that. But it seems they just keep pushing us aside, pushing us down. So we forget about this. Now we're focused on this. And then there's someone shoots somebody over here. Now we're focused. That's what this big bad media does out there. That media just throws that and moves you around where they want you. So you don't really focus too much on this so that we can't get accountability is my thoughts.
All right. I got a good news, bad news piece for the end of the show, Brian. Headline says Kamala Harris declines 2026 California governor's race. California dodged a bullet. Thank the heavens for that. But they say it paves the way for a 28 presidential bid. So California dodges a bullet. The American people still have a serious worry that Kamala is going to run again. And if she does, can she win? And who will oppose her? And everything else. And, wow. So she's not running for California governor, but it's paving the way for her to possibly run for presidential bid in 2028. Your comments, Brian?
Wow. Yeah, wow is the key right there, Sam. Wow.
Maybe Kamala will abolish the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see Kamala doing anything helping the country. No, I from what I've seen from her, I'm not sure I'm wanting her to run.
They say hope springs eternal. I was just trying to put some hope into the mix, and now you're telling me it's hopium, Brian. Wow.
Well,
all right.
Well, it's kind of like the border, Sam. The border. How did she do with the border? Wow.
Horrible. Now, I do think President Trump's doing a lot of good at the border, and I commend him. I know there's a lot of efforts to rid ourselves of illegal criminal aliens. I support that 1,000%. So Trump has done a lot of good, and the economy is way better under Trump than we were told it would be. So you got to give some credit where credit's due as well, ladies and gentlemen. Brian, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. God, call on God to watch over us and let us bless our fellow man.
Wow, do you think if we left the interest rates to the supply and demand of the free market, we prayed to God Almighty for stability in our markets, it would work?
It would.
Wow. I sure pray we can do more of that, ladies and gentlemen, because when we talk about all these things and we never mention God, no wonder we're always running around and never coming to the knowledge of the truth, huh? All right, thanks, Bryan Rust, freewaterquenco.com. Hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. Hour 1 in the can, 2 coming up. God save our republic.